In the last 4 years, drones have killed more soldiers, destroyed more armor, and changed more military doctrine than any other weapon system. Not missiles, not artillery, drones. And nowhere has that transformation been more brutal or more instructive than Ukraine. Today, we are ranking 10 of the most consequential drones from this war, from the ones that failed to live up to the hype, all the way to the one that has single-handedly overwhelmed the air defense systems of one of the most heavily defended countries in Europe. This is not a popularity contest. We are ranking on battlefield effectiveness, strategic impact, and what these machines have actually done, not what the brochure promised. Number 10. We start at the bottom with Russia's workhorse reconnaissance drone, the Orlan-10. On paper, it is a capable ISR platform, a fixed-wing drone with a range of roughly 120 kilometers, used to spot Ukrainian artillery positions and guide Lancet strikes. The problem? Ukraine figured out how to hunt it almost immediately. FPV Interceptor drones began targeting Orlan specifically, because without the Orlan providing targeting data, Lancet strikes drop by as much as 90%. The Orlan-10 is a drone that was never updated fast enough to survive a battlefield where the enemy is explicitly hunting it. In modern warfare, a reconnaissance drone that cannot survive long enough to complete its mission is not much use to anyone. Number 9. If you followed this war from the beginning, you already know the Bayraktar TB2. In the first weeks of the full-scale invasion, this Turkish-built drone was everywhere, hunting Russian armored columns, destroying supply convoys, becoming a symbol of Ukrainian resistance. There was even a pop song about it. But here is the uncomfortable truth. The TB2's moment was brief. Once Russia deployed its Buk and S-300 air defense systems in force, the TB2 became a very expensive target. Its radar signature is too large, its speed too low, and its electronic countermeasures too limited for a contested airspace. By mid-2022, TB2s had been largely pushed out of frontline combat and reassigned to surveillance missions over the Black Sea, where air defenses are thinner. The TB2 deserves its place in history for what it achieved in the opening weeks. But a drone that can only operate when the enemy is disorganized is not a war winner. It is a window of opportunity, and that window has long since closed. Number 8. The DJI Mavic 3 was not designed for war. It was designed for wedding photography, and yet it has become one of the most ubiquitous tools on the Ukrainian front line, used by both sides simultaneously. Ukrainian and Russian soldiers use commercial Mavics to spot enemy positions, correct artillery fire, and improvise rudimentary bombing runs by dropping grenades by hand over the side. The drone costs around $2,000. It is available off the shelf, and any soldier can learn to fly it in a day. The limitation is equally obvious. The Mavic 3 is trivially easy to jam. Both sides have deployed electronic warfare systems specifically to disrupt DJI frequencies, rendering entire squadrons of Mavics useless in certain sectors. It ranks number 8, not because it is ineffective, but because its ceiling is so low. When the jamming goes on, it becomes an expensive paperweight. Number 7. Most people who follow this war know the Shahed 136, and we will get to that. But Russia also deploys its smaller sibling, the Shahed 131, which NATO designates the Garand one. At roughly 2 meters in length, compared to the 136's 3.5, the Garand one carries a smaller warhead and has a shorter range, limiting it primarily to frontline and near-rear area targets. Russia uses the two variants together strategically. The smaller, faster Garand one is sometimes sent ahead of the larger Garand 2 waves to saturate air defenses and exhaust Interceptor ammunition before the heavier munitions arrive. But the Garand one on its own lacks the range and punch to be independently decisive. It is a supporting actor in Russia's drone campaign, not the lead. Number 6. The Zala Lancet-3 is Russia's most technically sophisticated, domestically produced drone, and for a time, it was terrifying. With an 80% claimed hit rate and the ability to loiter over a target area for up to 40 minutes before striking, it destroyed Ukrainian artillery, Leopard tanks, and Western-supplied air defense systems with uncomfortable precision. Russia launched over 600 Lancets through September 2023, targeting armored vehicles in roughly half of those strikes. Ukrainian analysts called it the most dangerous drone Russia was flying. So why is it only number 6? Because Ukraine adapted. FPV interceptors began hunting the Orlan-10 drones that the Lancet depends on for targeting data. Without those eyes, Lancet strike rates drop by up to 90%. A precision weapon without precision targeting is just an expensive piece of metal falling from the sky. The Lancet is lethal. It is also vulnerable to second-order countermeasures that its designers did not anticipate. Number 5. Russia's answer to the FPV revolution is the Molniya-2, and it is almost insultingly simple, built from plywood, armed with repurposed mortar shells, assembled for under $1,000 using mostly commercial components. Russia plans to produce 2 million of them this year. The numbers matter enormously. Russian FPV drones conducted over 3,000 documented attacks between August 2023 and March 2024, targeting armored vehicles and infantry in roughly equal measure. Russian medical reports suggest that over 75% of battlefield injuries are now caused by drone strikes, and FPVs account for a significant share of that figure. The Molniya-2 ranks below its Ukrainian counterparts for one key reason: accuracy. Russian claims of a roughly 33% effective strike rate lag behind Ukrainian FPV performance, partly due to training differences and partly due to electronic warfare countermeasures. But in a war of attrition, where volume is the strategy, number 5 is still a devastating weapon. Number 4. Ukraine's answer to the Shahed problem is the Lutyi, which means fierce in Ukrainian, and the name is earned. It is a purpose-built long-range strike drone with a range of 750 kilometers, enough to reach deep into Russian territory. While Russia has used its Shaheds to attack Ukrainian power infrastructure, Ukraine has used the Lutyi and similar long-range platforms to strike Russian airfields, fuel depots, and munitions factories. The Lutyi's limitation is cost. At $200,000 a unit, Ukraine cannot produce these at the scale of FPV drones. It is a scalpel, not a hammer. And in this war, you need both. Number 3. Ukraine entered 2026 with the capacity to produce over 8 million FPV drones per year across 160 manufacturers. That is a country that has turned drone production into a national industry, running faster than any military procurement system in history. These are not sophisticated weapons. A standard Ukrainian FPV costs between $200 and $1,000. Flies 5 to 15 kilometers, and carries a small explosive payload. What makes them decisive is the scale and the adaptation. Ukrainian engineers run design cycles measured in days, not months. A vulnerability, identified on Monday, can be corrected in a new production batch by Friday. Of the 31 American-supplied Abrams tanks lost by Ukraine, as of mid-2025, 27 were destroyed by drones, and FPVs account for the majority of those kills. Russia's most expensive armor is being destroyed by weapons cheaper than a second-hand car, but it's only ranked 3rd because 2 entries above it changed the strategic calculus of the entire war. Number 2. Here is the development that most analysts did not see coming. As Russia launched wave after wave of Shahed drones at Ukrainian cities, sometimes hundreds per night, Ukraine faced an impossible equation. Every Shahed intercepted by a Patriot missile cost roughly $3 million. The Shahed costs around $50,000. Russia could bankrupt Ukrainian air defenses simply by launching enough of them. Ukraine's solution was one of the most consequential military innovations of the war: the Interceptor drone. For $1,000 to $2,000 each, Ukrainian FPV interceptors like the Sting began hunting incoming Shaheds and destroying them in mid-air. The Sting alone claims a 90% success rate against its targets. One company's interceptors have downed over 3,900 drones since May 2025. Over Kiev, Ukrainian interceptors now account for over 30% of all Shaheds destroyed, freeing Patriot missiles for the ballistic threats they were actually designed to stop. The United States, after burning through 800 Patriot interceptors in the first week of its conflict with Iran, has now gone to Ukraine asking for help. The besieged country that spent 4 years begging for Western missiles is now exporting its innovations. Number 1 is the weapon that forced every defense ministry in the world to rewrite its air defense doctrine: The Shahed 136, which Russia redesignates the Geran 2, is an Iranian-designed loitering munition that Russia now manufactures at a factory in Tatarstan at a rate of 2,700 units per month. It is slow, it is loud, it flies at around 180 kilometers per hour and can be tracked on Telegram by Ukrainian civilians posting updates as it crosses their villages. Ukraine has shot down roughly 78% of the ones fired at it, and yet it is number one because the 22% that get through have systematically dismantled Ukraine's power infrastructure, and because the cost equation is so brutally asymmetric that no defense system in the world has fully solved it. The drone war in Ukraine is not over, it is accelerating. Every month brings new adaptations, new countermeasures, and new doctrines. But the fundamental lesson is already written. The era of expensive, exquisite weapons platforms dominating the battlefield is ending. The age of cheap, scalable, expendable systems has arrived, and Ukraine is the place where that transition happened in real time, under fire.